जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी
Vaidhi ki Fateh ji. Vaidhi Khalsa, Vaidhi Fateh, and welcome back to another session of KhojGurbani. Ravinder Singh here, joining you from Columbus, attempting to facilitate. Today we are actually resuming our previous format, which was to have a presenter come and speak extensively, well, extensively meaning about 30 minutes or so, on a topic of interest. And the topic that we've chosen is Munh. We've done this before, but as we all know and acknowledge, it's inexhaustible. So hopefully we'll go down this road again and a different landscape. You know, sometimes we don't see things, don't observe things. So with that said, Vijay Gurjeet Singh is going to kick it off.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So I'll be giving a presentation on Munh. That's as per my understanding. There are general concepts within the religion. There are concepts which also have come from few other religions or faiths, but it's more a topic about the non-Semitic faith.
And you're turning electronic on us, so you may want to shift positions or something.
Is it?
Now you're okay.
Okay, all right.
Now you're good.
All right. So, Munh, a general definition, we can say it's a lower self, and mind or lower mind or unaware mind. It is directing the thoughts towards some sort of desired outcome, and it depends how it has been trained. So its training is very important. The way it is trained, its outcomes are direct in correlation to its training. And we'll go through and see how to train this, what Gurmat says about training it. So the general idea given by Gurmat is in the Gaudi Bhavanakri by Bhagat Kabir ji, that Eman Shakti, this mind is a power, and it's due to this power the whole body system is running. It's running the vital body systems, and at the same time it's a part of our consciousness through which we see, through which we listen, through which we eat or taste or smell. So it's the power comes from this Munh, and the origin is lying in the center. CEO. CEO is like the origin, the husband or the mole. So the power is coming from within the mole. So mole is the storehouse of this power which is running this whole body system. So we can say that the mole is the essence of consciousness, and because this mind is in a state of semi-consciousness or unconsciousness, it is also a substance of our mind. So the mind will be sentient in nature, and it is attracted, it is attached within to its mole because the power is coming from. So mole is like a battery which is running the whole system. And when a time comes when the mole is being asked to stop breathing, the body is considered to be physically dead, but the soul is still living at that time. And the mind, ultimately lower mind merges into the higher mind, and that mind is still there in that state. So we'll be always, when we use a language, is just to understand. We do try to separate inseparable things. As a whole, it's a one unit, but when it's for our understanding that we try to separate these things so that it can be understood by a common person as well. So all these terms which we'll be using is just to improve our understanding. Ultimately, it is one unit where this all consciousness is playing. So this is a general definition of a lower mind. These are the general virtues associated with the lower mind. And the mind is connected to the brain. So the brain has those 5 senses attached to it. And the operation is coming from mole, but mole is sending its power just to the lower mind. And the lower mind is ultimately connected to the brain. And together what is done there is, it's like a seat of memory. We remember things. Then the association, we remember the associate, we try to associate things, then thinking is happening there, and we form some sort of mentality out of that. And the mentality is, critical and very analytical times, at times. It's also materialistic and impressionable. So this is all what is happening in the lower mind. And if we can summarize this, that is functions, it is confined to all the memory, but at the same time it's fearful. It has a lot of doubts. It goes around and it is storehouse of worldly information for us. And when we ask Gurbani on these contexts, the Gurbani give us an indication that man, kuthar, is like a donkey. Tera nahi bisas, tu mahamada. So the lower self is like a donkey. It is useful when it is trained. So you can take an advantage. Depends how much you're training and for what sort you're training. But it is, and burden when it is untrained. So Gurbani is helping us to train this mind and training more towards its own self. That where is your origin? Where do you born from? And how to connect back. And this will be done by a trainer. And the trainer is nothing but the buddhi, which we'll discuss in the process. So, and high mind, this is quite a general statement about high mind, that it is in tune with there's a universal mind, the hukam as such, the Prameshwar, the Parbrahm. So higher mind is in tune with that. And when we access the higher mind through using our wisdom, we are actually accessing the universal mind. And as per Gurmat, the universal mind is the highest intelligence. So we always see the Guru, as we say, Gyan. The Gyan is for us intelligence. There's no more Gyan than it's perfect. It has a Gyan of everything, whether it's sentient or non-sentient. That's for us is a hukam, and that's the Guru, and it is a universal mind. Everyone takes intelligence or wisdom from there. So within Gurmat, we'll be dealing with these three. There are 3 states of mind. There is a non-conscious, or what we call unaware mind, soya. Then there's a subconscious or semi-aware, which is almost said as Nindravla. It is sleeping and awake in both states. Partially awake, partially sleeping, and conscious is, of course, fully aware. And these terms can differ in different sort of, processes, different sort of faiths, but they are normally be dealing with the 3. So different literatures may use slightly different terms, but non-conscious doesn't mean that he's totally unconscious. He's unaware of his origin. And in semi-state, it is knows somewhat. This is an improvement from there. It's being held by its wisdom regularly. And then it ultimately, at one stage, becomes conscious or fully aware. And at that stage is totally, is a tyagi now. It's away from Maya, and it's only in this stage that he passes commands like Kur Raja, Kur Parja, Kur Sab Sansar, because it was giving me a sleep. So now I've minimum in contact with it, and I'm in an awakened state. So this is a very simple line coming from Gurbani, that man soya. Why? Because Maya Bismat. It is more fascinated by the Maya because that's very easily visible and it's more advertised the way we are educated and trained. The lower mind is unaware about its origin. That's how we define that this is in a state of unawareness or it's sleeping. Although it is working, getting information, doing all sorts of activities, but it hardly knows anything that what is my mool, how I am operating, how I was born, how I come here, what was my functions. Was I have only come here to do kamma or I have to do a Khoj as well? So all these things, he's unaware, and then his awareness will start slowly. This is how the awareness starts, how the Bhagats have told us that Gur Prasadi Naam Man Laga. In Gurbani, we have a Naam, and if the lower mind accepts that Naam, then he is becoming aware. Slowly, partially aware, and then fully aware. And this is what they say, Janam Janam Ka Soya Jaga. In the other lives, he couldn't obtain mukti, but he was able to go to the next stage. And now is the time when he can obtain mukti. So the mukti is directly related to Naam or spiritual wisdom, which is within the Gurbani. This is more like a, you can say, in the sense of knowledge, spiritual knowledge. So then there will be another Naam, which is after obtaining this Harka Naam, it then attains the universal will. That is the real Naam as mentioned in Gurbani. And there are instances when the Bhagats have proclaimed this, that simar, 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 gur apna, soya man jagai. So the man is sentient, and the gur, apna gur, which is your mool, is also sentient. But by constantly reminding, and reminding is done by the buddhi. The buddhi is helping him to remind that we are a unit and we have come here for this purpose. So this is a constant exercise which every devotee has to perform, is to train the mind. And the trainee is nothing but the wisdom obtained from Gurbani. The first point of contact of Gurbani is with the wisdom we have. Then that wisdom ultimately will, it's almost like, it's when you take an example of a cow and a calf, the cow is being fed with a fodder or grass. So then it chews the grass and ultimately gives the milk. And that milk is basically the source of attraction for the calf. But if the wisdom is not having any milk, then it's not easy for the mind or the calf to get attracted. The calf only gets attracted because it's getting a source of milk from her. So it becomes a purpose. The whole purpose of reading Gurbani comes from within the wisdom. The wisdom has to critically analyze it, and then after analysis, have to feed it to the mind. That's what we call as a basically tap. So jap is to be done by Gurbani, then tap, and then what happens is then the lower mind comes in contact with the higher consciousness. This is how the whole process works. So this is what I think is the state originally, and then what happens afterwards. That when first of all the buddhi contemplates on the Gurbani and it accepts it himself. The buddhi knows what is to be further fed to the mind. So accepting first of all Gurbani as a universal truth and then contemplating what happens, surti hove. Its own surti is increasing, which is what is doing the effect, is increasing the intellect within the mind. The awakening and enlightening is happening within the mind, but the first act is to be done by the buddhi. The buddhi has to read, contemplate, and then further feed it to the mind. And then what happens is the whole system changes. The mind inverts himself from Maya, becomes introvert. Before it was extrovert. When it becomes introvert, it opens up and it further joins to what we call Akash, or the universal mind. So this is how it is to be done. Firstly, has to become an acceptance. Firstly, buddhi has to accept it correctly. Then it has to comprehend it, feed it back to the mind, and this way the buddhi keeps on developing and increasing, and ultimately we are one with the universal consciousness. And there's a simple example given by Kabirji, but when people whosoever have written these tikas, when they are comprehending, they are not understanding metaphoric language. It's only 4 words, Ganik, Suva Padavat Ganika Tari. So Ganika is nothing but the trainer, the semi-aware mind who is reading Gurbani, and then is further telling it to the man. But the whole, when they have done the and whatever translations, they have just kept 2 words, that teaching a parrot to utter the Lord's name, the prostitute was saved. So who is the parrot? Why it was known as prostitute? The whole aim is the whole aim of the wisdom is to ultimately let this truth know to the mind, but originally the mind doesn't accept it, so it thinks it's being demeaning him. But slowly, with a constant approach and different sorts of examples or in situations, if we don't leave it, we keep on pressing, there's a chance that mind will accept that wisdom. And what happens is the Ganika Tari, because it's ultimately the wisdom who is getting the reward for it, because it's taking all the filth out of the mind, and the mind itself is attaining wisdom. So in the end, it's the wisdom Shabad Surt Kamel. This is how it will happen. But these are just the terms. This is how we have been told. And then Kabirji says, tell us the fact that it depends upon how much someone has tried to explore. Jaake ji jaisi buddhi hoi, Kabir janenga soi. So we are all different at different levels, depending upon how much we have researched, how much the buddhi has developed, and how much we are further able to pursue the lower mind. So this is basically a fact coming out of Kabirji, that everyone won't be at the same level. But if someone's buddhi is complete, all the bhagats have the same level of wisdom, so they all spoke the same language. They all spoke the same spiritual wisdom in the end. And this is also a definition about what mind has to do. This is also is a purpose of mind, that eman karma, the mind has to do some sort of action. Eman dharma, why doesn't it do the action of the faith of spiritual wisdom to attain spiritual wisdom? Eman panchatatte janma, this mind is actually made up of the supreme element. It's not a jad as it was explained in other faiths. Sakat lobi eman muda. If someone is attracted to Maya, then this man is an untrained donkey, as we were saying before. Muda, senseless. And what happens? The same man, when obtains through the buddhi, Gurmukh naam japa. So the japna is important. Nothing is happening until we go for the japna, and then the mind, the same mind, attains the values. It becomes it's priceless. So the unaware mind is born of prime element. While committing its deed, the mind should follow. The dharma means it should be attracted towards the gyan, the wisdom. This mind of manmukh is perverted and greedy. And through contemplation on Gurmukh's unaware mind becomes beautiful and aware. So this is a process which every Sikh need to do through Gurbani. So very important that how we have explained. I talk a lot about Muhl, and here the Gurbani comes. Bhagat Kabirji says us, Mamma Muhl Gaya Man Manne. that when the mind is attracted to its mool, then only it accepts. Gaya means to catch, to cling. Only because it has accepted it first. That I will, the buddhi has explained what the buddhi has done. Marmi hoy. So the buddhi has done nothing but research. It is the seeker, it's getting the possible facts to the mind. Then only our mind will ever get attracted to the mool. So the mool, so we have to read Gurbani, and then we have to become a marmi. We have to research it. We have to go inside to look for our mind, the state of our mind, and how to get rid of all the filth, and then how we can ultimately become one with our mool. So the mool is nothing but it's an origin, a place of origin, and it's a birthplace. And also it's a starting place, it's a root, and also considered as the father for the lower self, the lower mind. So the Shakti is coming from within CO. And Mool is because coming out of the word Muli. Muli is nothing where you see the roots are invisible. So we can't see our Brahm within us, but certainly this body is visible. So this is also one of the ways. And it's because of the mool that these leaves are green. Our life is running. When the mool leaves us, this body is same, but it loses its power to interact. Well, the power has been absorbed back into the mool, and this body is basically physically dead. So this is what the whole purpose of Gurbani is, that we have got a business with this man. Mamma mansyu kaj hai. And what is the kaj we have to do? Man sadde siddhi hui. If we can perfect this mind, then we'll obtain the soji. The siddhi is soji. So this has to be done by the wisdom. The wisdom is saying this. The Buddha is saying that I was only here for this purpose, that I have to tell my lower self that where are the problems and how we can get one with as a whole unit. So the Buddhi has to discipline the mind. So the Buddhi is a trainer and the mind is a trainee. So this will continue everywhere. We always go by wisdom. The Akali Sahib Savior. It's the Akal, it's the wisdom who has to do the whole job in our faith. So this is what finally I have come to the conclusion, that is a shabad like At Pritam Man Mohana Kat Sohana Pran Adara Ram. That my Pritam is now fascinating to me. It's becoming more attractive to me because I think it's an ornament for me. And it's also the support of the breath of life within me. So this, where does it read? Is within the cut. So I've tried to, within my understanding, draw a very crude sort of diagram, that within a cut, we have two things. There is a cut, the lower we have shown with the high self, and there is a avkat. So the avkat is actually not attached to the akash. It's darker. It's within it, but when we have to bring the avkat into the cut, that's what Kabir ji is telling us. Jitte avkat galiyan pidiyan. From avkat to come to cut, there is the path is very narrow. So the surat has to come through there. So the man is always resisting it. But who will be the helper? Titthe Hari Hari Mukti Karaye. Before we come into contact with the Hari, who will decrease the size of the man. The gully may remain the same size, the street may be still narrow, but the mind becomes, the lower self becomes even narrower, almost like an air. so that it can pass through. There is no restriction. But it's only done with the help of a hari. Until we are going to seek help from hari, this, our Muhl, this won't be achieved. So the lower self basically is an instrument for the higher, and provided the wisdom know how to use this, how to train it, and how to become a Puran Brahm. And in the last stage, this is what Kabir ji has said, because he has attained, he says, Ta kat mahe. Within a cut, there is a ford from where you can cross into Sukh Sagar. Ta kat mahe kat jo pawa, so kat chad. Then I was always in the cut. And then this whole Brahm sits into the Jahaz, which takes him back. This is just a, a simile. There's nothing like that otherwise. So Sukh Sagar is on the lowest end here, and the Pav Sagar is on the higher end. The journey is to be done from Avkat into the cut. And when the Surat stops to going into the Avkat, remains in the cut constantly, then then there is a kirpa on him, and he's basically sitting in the ship and then floating away into the Sukh Sagar. So this is my whole understanding that how the mind is, what are the functions, where does it start from, how it created, why it is in doubts, because the trainer was weak, or whatever training we got originally was not good enough. So then slowly we have to train it from within Gurbani. So Gurbani will invert this avkat, will bring him into this cut, and from the cut, when it is there constantly, and then it's have got a kirpa on it, and the kirpa will basically take him away into the state. It's only a change of mind, nothing is happening. He was in a sleepy mode. From sleepy, he got to semi-conscious, and from semi-conscious, he got to a conscious stage. And when he opened his eyes, he didn't go anywhere. The Jeev was still sitting in Sachkhand. It was a state of that sleep, the unawareness, and then the further dreaming has caused all this. But when he awakes, he finds that he's sitting where he was originally. So this is my understanding, ji. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh.
Anji, thank you, Viji. Thank you very much. Anji, Chetandeep.
Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh. Virji, thank you so much for a great presentation. I have a question on the slide where you had, I think, mentioned about training the mind. That lower mind is trained by the trainee, and the trainer, and the trainer is wisdom. So the question I have is, there seems to be a prerequisite for training the mind. Looks like wisdom is a prerequisite for training the mind. It seems strange to me. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Like, after the mind is trained, the wisdom is born. And if you can answer that. Also, if you can answer what kind of wisdom are you talking about, and how can we cultivate that wisdom in our daily life?
So Gurbani in word in itself is a feminine word. But Gur is is a masculine word, but Bani in itself is a feminine word. So it's only means there's nothing male female as such, as I told you, but this is the way it has been written and shown to us. Wisdom is also part of the same consciousness. The lower mind is also part of same consciousness, and the higher mind is a part of the same consciousness. So who has to take an action? When you read anything, I think we assume that the wisdom is doing it. So if wisdom is doing that action, you're reading anything, then do you understand it? And understanding comes as a second factor. And then acceptance is where everything lies. So first thing is, have we only read so far, or have we gone a next step that we have tried to explore and connect the different parts of Gurbani? That why is Guru Nanak's Patti says this, why does Kabir Sahib's Baban Akri says they should be connected in some sense, because they are a part of the same text. So it's all the purpose of this wisdom to read it, because wisdom is in a semi-conscious sort of stage. But the mind is totally unconscious. So slowly the wisdom expands, the mind is basically absorbed, you're only left with wisdom in the end. So the whole thing lies on our faith. Do we really trust Gurbani? Do we think that this is written and it's the right path? So if we don't have a faith in the text, then we can't attain anything. So I think the first thing is to have faith, and then we read it, and then we learn to comprehend it from within the text. Then the wisdom will have to increase. And when the wisdom increases, the mind is subdued, the lower mind is subdued, and then you're basically left with the wisdom and the mool. They are both married, as they say. This is what the wedding is actually in Gurbani. It's not between one body and another body outside. It's within you. So this is what my understanding is. That's what I think I understood from within your questions. Did I leave anything or?
Thank you, Virji. I think you answered that.
Okay. Thank you, Virji. And Eileen?
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I just thought that was a really awesome presentation. I love the drawings and also the metaphor of the calf getting milk. I think that was really powerful for me, for just kind of just an illustration that's compelling. I can come back to. I guess the only question that I have, and maybe it's not even a question, it's just sort of something I need to think about more, is the training, you know, like the repetitive training, or kind of coming back to the training, and how is that different, the process, than just having one moment of understanding, or in other words, like if I read Bani and I have this, you know, a great understanding one day, and I said, oh, I really am connected, and I you know, it resonates with me, and it feels true, and I can feel a change that I can put into practice. You know, it wouldn't stop there, right? The next day I also have to come back, and the next day I have to come back, because I'm still in the real world, and I'm being pulled, my you know, it slips away, or my mind gets distracted. And so I'm just trying to understand a little bit about, I guess, the difference between the ongoing training and sort of the first, you know, experience of having that consciousness, you know, awoken, right? So the first, you know, the waking up, stay awake.
Okay, so yeah, it's means, as per what I understood, it's within Gauri Sukhmani is written the technique for the, means we are all beginners. It says barang bar prab japiye. This is the technique which we have to be constant and consistent. And this is what they say drinking P Amrit. This is what the taste of Amrit will come. It will start from here, but then in the end there is also a line which they say Nanak Gurmukhi Naam Japiye Ikbar. But some of them have attained it very quickly, because they already did some process. They were in a bit of a doubt, like you have Gurangad and Guru Amardas. It didn't took them long to attain, because they had something in mind, and then they have already done that process, looks like. And then as soon as they were in contact with Gurbani, they were very easily able to clear their doubts. So as a beginner, from faith, we have been told, japiye, not kahiye. There's a difference, I'll say, there is a karta and there is a japna. We have been reminded Ram Ram Karta. Karta is not jap. Ram Ram Karta is some reputation coming from very old times. But Ram Ram Japta Sab Jag Fire is not there. There will be very few people, as per Gurmat, who are true seekers and doing the jap. Otherwise, we are merely reading it, and half of the time we don't understand the purpose of it. Until we understand the purpose of it through discussions, because once I don't find one's wisdom, we learn from each other. And once the wisdom gets into that level that it is capable of attracting the mind, because in turn it has to give something. If it's not giving anything, then the mind never gets. Because I was discussing with someone, they say, the calf is standing next to the cow, but he has no attraction because he knows there's no milk over there. So the whole purpose of japna is done through wisdom and using different sort of analogies. Then I think it slowly, gets into a stage where constantly it becomes a part. From jap, you go into a state of a japa jap. It is constantly happening, and there's a constant flow of amrit. Before, originally, there is sometime we do get attracted, but sometimes we are off because something else has happened. The mind is so strong. It's not under. It does come sometime, but it sometimes doesn't come. So it has to be, as per my understanding, a constant persistence that we have to do it. That was the whole purpose of life. I think then we can slowly advance. That's what has been told by the people who obtained it. That barang bar bar prabh japiye has to be a continuous process.
Thank you, Vici.
Thank you, Ji. And Iribudamavir Ji.
Vijay, no questions thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji. Ekankar Ji.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Wow, this was wonderful. Really wonderful presentation. I would love to go back and revisit this notion of gat and avgat, though, because it was a little unclear with the illustration. So what? Correct me, maybe I didn't understand you properly, but the idea is that the mind has to come and rest in the heart, basically. I mean that, through Gurbani, it gets trained and then it finds its way into the heart. And when it's resting in the heart, then that's when it's aligning with its mole, with the root, with the higher self. But what I guess what I'm confused is like the two triangles, because it looks like, are these triangles related to the body at all? That, where these energies are located? I wasn't really so clear about the illustration either.
The whole consciousness is within a cut, as we all know, has been repeated number of times, that cut mein harju bas hai, that my mole is living within my cut. But is there another entity? But then the Kabir Ji has introduced the word avkat. Av means ulta. There is a awkat, there are two words. Awkat means difficult. Avkat means reverse. When the surat has to go into the five senses which we have, it goes through avkat.
So in other words, the spirit has to leave the heart in order to go into the senses?
Yes, but it only goes like a dhyan, as we say. It's only a power, like the magnet is in the center, but then the magnetic field is outside. But what is happening is that it is going out through ears, it's going through eyes, but these are the two main vital organs. And if you see in your body, in your skull, your eyes and ears are quite at the same level. The nose is slightly down and the mouth is further down. So these are the two. Sravan, it goes out through the ears, but then when it has to come back after obtaining, after churning the knowledge, it becomes Sravan. So that Sravan is nothing but is a part of your consciousness. Your ears are only listening, or sorry, you can say hearing, but then the listening is to be completed within the consciousness. You have read words, and I'll show you means even what happened. There is a Kabirji slok which says it depends upon how much you depend upon these lagamatras or these vowels attached. Kabirji says ek marante dui mue, but there dui means second, and then he says doe marante char. Doe means both. So Gurbani is very actually written in that language. It has to be looked through the eyes, but the analysis will take through your netras within the same heart. How the Surat went out, and then what it bring within after reading. That comprehension is the higher heart.
So, I mean, this is really subtle, and I've never heard this kind of system before explained, and I want to make sure I understand it because it feels really critical, really important. That because it's reminding me of the Anand Sab, where Guru Amar Das is saying, "Oh, my eyes, you were made to see the divine light in everyone and everything. Oh, my ears, you were made to hear truth." So that the mind or the awareness can get caught in the senses, and that's the avgat. But when the perception of the senses is taken back into the heart itself, then that's the proper positioning for the mind. Is that?
Yeah, when you only say it is eyes and ears, then we are still stuck in. But the words there used are not kan and ak. He has purposefully used the word a netro meryo, a sravano meryo. So, as I say, from hearing to listening, the ears to sravan, there is a process.
Right.
Up to until you are within your consciousness, until you are in avkat, you are just within your ears. But when the surat comes within you, where you have to churn the shabad, the gyan, there you will see, it's because we'll do the next party. I think Harvinder will, if I will send you, we'll be doing in Punjabi. A sarira meria. He didn't ask the sarir. The sarir is the outer body with 5 senses, but sarira is the inner body, who is basically a magnet, but sending out these 5 senses. He's diverting these 5 senses to gain something out of the this visible world. But then until from avkat, you bring it back to the cut. It's the storehouses in the cut.
Got it. Okay.
If I read one line for you, Kabirji says, "Ek patar mein arkat kurkat." Arkat kurkat is nothing but the worldly knowledge. Ek patar mein pani. The other one is having the water, but the mind has to become what you say, babiha. The mind has to become sarang to come and drink that water from within the heart. So when it comes there, then it's a possibility it will stay there. But if it is just saying it's okay, I'm more than happy with where I am, nothing happens. But if you want to connect to the universal wisdom, he has to invert himself. It's just,
So it's through the Gurbani that the mind becomes sarang, and then when the mind becomes sarang, it can enter into the heart.
Of course, that's why we have sarang rag. Sa
Right.
means like that, rang means gyan. That I want to obtain the color of my mool, sarang.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why the word sarang is not, we haven't explored it. We need to get the virtues of the heart, the virtues of our mool. And that's, I'm in the same color, then the two colors will meet. But at this stage, it's like water and oil. They never mix.
Right.
But when it is water and milk, then you don't know whether it's a milk there or it's a water when they mix. So it's, you know, it's sort of analogies which we have been told, but we have not explored about rasana. We normally call rasana as a tongue, because tongue is here with the skull and the body. What is rasana? The rasana is that power coming out of the heart, which is as an outdoor, you know, through your Sravan and through your netars, we are taking the stuff indoors. And when you speak through rasana, not through your jeeb, because jeeb is directly connected to, again, the avkat. The rasana is connected to the kat.
Right.
Then
right,
it will speak the pure Bani. So it's same words, but has to be, the power is in rasana. The listening power is in Sravans. The analyzing power for your words is also, as they say, che kar che gur. Che upadesh gur gur eko. But that consciousness is just one, where everything will be processed. It comes from 5 different sources, but ultimately will be processed in the one center, which is your cut.
So it's the vibration, how the words are vibrating and how the mind is vibrating ultimately, because you can be seeing the same thing and speaking the same thing, but if it's from the avgat, it's one experience, and if it's within the gut, it's another experience.
Of course, yeah, that's the training which the Gurbani has been spoken from cut.
Right.
But most of the knowledge which we obtained is from, but it's helpful. It can be helpful if we try to, it will reverse itself actually. That's the whole, that's why the mind is scared, because it has to lose it. It has already obtained it in so much, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, then it has memorized it, and now someone is telling it to reverse it. This is the biggest, that's why they say that, that coming through those streets is, narrowing you yourself. That whatever I've learned, is it with the Gurbani, that's what they say, man Ram kasvatti laya. The mind has to rub itself against Ram to see how pure it is. And Gurbani is nothing but that stone, that Midas, you can say, which will tell whether you can convert this into gold or it won't happen.
Okay, I've taken up too much time, but thank you for answering those questions.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you, Ji. And Ranavir Ji?
Hanji, Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh Ji. Can you hear me?
Anji, we can hear you.
Hanji. First of all, Gurjeet Virji, let me compliment you. Each time you make presentation like this one, at least to me, it gives a lot of resource to take it back and reflect on that. So I thank you for that, one thing. I will spend time and a lot of references which will help me understand not only what you presented, but a lot of the things I struggle sometimes. And so I appreciate that. These last diagrams are quite intriguing to me. Before I come to this one, let me ask you a simple question. Right at the outset, you said that Aman Shakti, Aman Sio. Sio is the mool. This is what you said. So let me try to understand this pankti, Aman Shakti. This, the man which is lower conscious, on one hand we are talking about this lower mind, and then also this man is mool. What does that mean? In this line, I'm not clear about that, because as it is line, this is one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Aman Shakti, but man, you, as you presented earlier, is the lower self, and Siu is a mool. Why is it Aman Siu? I couldn't understand that. Maybe I'm missing something.
Because if this is a third pankti on the Mamma, it's actually in continuation. If we understand the first two, he starts with Mamma Mool Gaya Man Manne, then Marmi Hoiso Man Ko Janne, This is the third pankti where it's in, because the Bani is coming in continuation. It sometimes does, you're right, cause a trouble. But the only thing I want to tell you here is this mind has got an origin. Although it's powerful, where is the origin of the power? And ultimately, when the mind is straightened, jab siddha ho gaya na, siddh pai, where does that Shakti goes? It doubles itself. Because at this stage, this is being misutilized in gaining other things. But when this mind will be, siddh pai, will be inverted back into its consciousness, then if there's a 50-watt bulb, it becomes 100 watts. Because all this misutilization is being properly now, it is in its original state. But Man Shakti, yes, the whole system is run by the Man. But where is that power coming from? It is within you, and your origin is your CO. So it has only been used by Kabir ji twice, that this is the CO, is the mool, is the origin from where all this power to the five senses are going. So am I clear on that?
Okay, no, that's fine. Appreciate that. Then in the one of the diagrams where you have inverted triangles, it was very good to see, understand what cut is, because the word cut has been used. Cut may you say. Okay, that is a chit you are referring to, and that is where the Jyot of Akalpur, jo we can, that is residing there, the mood resides there. So the question comes, how does the lower self, which we call mind, emanates from that chit? What makes it to come out, and why it comes out? And what, because there's nothing in Gurbani, they are talking about cut only, cut image USA. That's the only thing what we have. From there, what you're saying is the lower self evolves. How does and why does it come into picture?
The thing is, the Chaitan and Jad don't meet each other, like they don't mix in each other. The Chaitan is always away from the Jad, but it's like a remote of your telly, that it is very much there, but it's operating. It needs that media in between, avkat, to travel from your remote into your telly. That media is avkat, through which it is traveling. So it can't directly relate to the Brahm doesn't mix in Maya as such. So our Jyot is always being said is with the Akash. And that Dhyan, that within that where it has to operate, we need avkat for that. And through avkat, you are connected to your brain. So this is what I understand, that the Jyot is lying separate. It's operating this body through that, there's a gap. There is a media in between, which is further operating the whole system.
Okay, thank you very much. One final small thing, and then I'll stop. Where does, because in Gurbani, Jyo, Pran, two words have come, where does soul, prana fit into this concept now? This is consciousness we are talking about. We can say soul is the consciousness. Where is prana? The word prana is, I'm sure, is separate from the consciousness, because the words have come in Gurbani, which makes it very clear in my mind. There are two different concepts, but maybe I'm wrong. So where does that prana fit into that? Consciousness fit into that? I think consciousness fits. You talk about consciousness. And soul, where does that fit?
See, the body is made up of water, basically. But it is running pavan ka thamba, jal ki peet. That's what Ravidas ji says. The whole body is nothing but water, but it's connected. The connection is, the media is between these two is the air. Pavan ka thamba. that media is acting as you say, the air is nothing but joining the conscious and the sentient and the unsentient body. So that's why when you read Sachete Pavana Bhaya, then from Pavana is the Jal. So air is what prana is. And a lot of time it has been told in Gurbani that it's only that he stops breathing. Nanak Betha Pakhevao. He's running this system of your diaphragm to, through a remote power. But when the hukam comes to this, then ultimately it goes. It only sends a signal that to the body that I am taking my power of giving you the breathing back, and then the body is basically dying. I'll see, I have got another one if I could find that. And I have tried to make this bit simple, just to give me a sec. I should be able to find that one. And this means it's in 2 dimensions. It's pretty hard. The whole hassle is that this thing is not easy to comprehend in the way we are trying to. But yeah, so I'll see if I've shared this screen. And this is, let me see, this will clear one more concept. So I'll say share screen, application window is this one. So can you see this one now?
Manji?
Ranavij? Is this visible? This
Yes,
screen?
it is. Yeah.
All right. It says Lalle Lai Tande Jin Chodi. The Brahma has put his, like a magnet, has put his power to this body. He has released the power from within himself so that the whole body system can run. So the Brahma is made up of Panchtat, Videhi, but the Man is attached to this body made up of 4 elements. That's where the avkat is. And we have 5 senses: taste, smell, sight, hearing, and touch. But out of these 3, like Netra and Shravan, are bringing the information back into the heart, into the Brahm. That's where the whole process will take place. It means now the mind is involved and it wants to attract to the lower mind is involved to want to attract to the higher mind, because the higher mind is calm, clear, receptive, aware, and peaceful. Whereas this other one doesn't have these virtues. So until it uses this Netra and Shravan, it will never be in contact with the Mool. So we have to use these 2 powers where we have to listen to see something, and then we have to ultimately look at what the reality, and then come back into the Mool to discuss everything. That's where the mind's circle will decrease and the Buddha will increase.
Well, thank you very much, Virji.
So we're out of time, so we will continue on same topic, Man, next week. And I think Chetandeep will present on 10th. And again, thank you, Gurjeet Virji. Thanks for such a wonderful presentation. And then hopefully we will see all you back next week. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.